There's around 8.5 million people in Israel. 6 million of those are Jews. The remainder are Christians, Muslims, and Druze. In a country the size of New Jersey, these different groups live side by side, yet their lifestyles are dictated by their various religions. The role of women in Israeli society reflects the country's religious diversity. On a journey through Israel, women from minority and majority religions opened up about their values, careers, and home lives. Here in southern Israel, the Bedouins have lived in the Negev desert since the 18th century. I spoke with one Bedouin woman who's trying to balance a traditional nomadic lifestyle with a modern 21st century one. When Suhaila Abrakik was married, her husband made it very clear that having a job was not an option. In Bedouin society, based on Islam, men work outside the home and women work inside the home. Following in her sister's footsteps, Abrakik opened her own business, selling products like camel soap and body ointments, a secret healing recipe passed down from her grandmother.
Because I was always staying at home with no job, and once she opened this place, I came here and started to work with her.
At first, Abrakik didn't tell her husband, but when she did, he wasn't happy.
So I moved out and stayed with my dad so that I could keep working.
Abrakik stayed with her father for 3 months, because that was her only choice. In Bedouin society, women have to stay with their family if they choose to leave their husband.
And I insisted on keeping the job, and then I came back home again. Although he tried many things to make me come back home and stop going to work, but I still insisted.
When she returned, there were new problems. When one of her daughters finished the 6th grade, her husband wanted to stop her from going back to school.
I didn't accept it at the beginning. I thought he was joking, but then I understood that he was serious, and he doesn't want her to go to school to 7th grade.
Efforts to convince her husband that education was important for their daughter didn't work. Instead, it was her father who intervened, but problems persisted.
During the 3 years, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, he would punish her.
Abrakik got her daughter through 9th grade, and now she wanted more.
So I went to the Office of Welfare, and I told them that I need her to continue to go to school, and if she doesn't continue, I want them to take her to a women's shelter so they can protect her there. If not, she will leave the house and she will go up north.
Willing to risk her marriage and go against tradition.
When my husband screams at me sometimes, he says, "Is there anything you didn't do?" And I tell him no, there's nothing. And then I think to myself, there's a few things that I've done that you don't know about.
Here in southwest Israel, I'm about as close to the Gaza border as I can before the Israeli army stops me. I spoke to one Jewish woman who is actually a part of the majority, but she lives only less than a mile away from Gaza, which makes her feel like the minority.
Our lives don't matter to this government.
Sharon Shelley and her family live in Sderot, near the Gaza border. They are always on the lookout for rockets from Gaza. According to Sderot Media, in a 29-day period between late May and June last year, over 200 rockets and mortars were fired at communities near the Gaza Strip. On average, that's 7 times a day. The sirens ring and rockets fall.
And missiles are fired to the state of Israel, to the center of Israel. When they shoot rockets at us, they say, missiles were shot at the Gaza envelope area, like it's not a part of the state of Israel.
Living on the border, she feels neglected by her government and that they care more about the big cities. In fact, while I was reporting in Israel, rockets were fired at Tel Aviv. The reactions were huge, and that upset her.
Very upsetting to hear how all the media talk about missiles being fired to Tel Aviv, and the response of the army is very different because we are not real people. They have real lives like the people in Tel Aviv.
The frequent attacks on Sderot, the constant worry it causes, and the impact it has on the children in her community led Shelley to a career in post-trauma therapy.
Like if I wanted to take my child to the kindergarten, I was running and always making sure I am close to a house. And we didn't have shelters then, so it was just very scary.
Helping other children and her own cope with the aftermath of the terror as they try to get on with their everyday lives.
We have fireworks on Independence Day, And my second daughter, when she heard the noise of the fireworks, she reacted like I've never seen a child react to anything before. And I'm working with children my whole life, and she just her body was like spasm like this, and she was crying, and she stopped crying, and she froze. She froze for a few minutes, like, and it was the look on her face. It was very, very scary.
They build their lives around being ready for the bombs. Now, there are bomb shelters almost everywhere you look in Sderot. Bus stops are bomb shelters, and even playgrounds.
They play here, and where there's an alarm, they just run into the shelter.
Living in a mindset of constant threat changed the way she parented her children.
I don't know what kind of a mother I would be without the missiles.
And it never ends.
And I always had in my mind another story about where we are, where is the next building, and who I grab first and run to the shelter. Always telling myself the story of what I'm gonna do if there's a missile right now.
The Haredi, also known as ultra-Orthodox Jews, have a population of around 1 million here in Israel. This is a Haredi community here in Jerusalem, and the role of a woman focuses heavily on their jobs and careers. The Haredi are the most Jewish of the Jews, identifiable mostly by their dress. The women will cover their heads. The men will wear black suits, hats, and have long curls.
He couldn't do what he's doing without me.
Zippy Yarom is a typical Haredi woman. She supports her family by working outside the home, while her husband stays at home studying the Torah. Despite the flip in traditional roles, women are still classified as secondary.
The fact that the woman is working and the husband is learning, his level would be higher.
That is according to the Torah, the Jewish holy book, which married couples take very seriously, and they agree that the man will study while the woman works.
Many women would never give it up. My father is 60 and he's still learning, and my mother will never let him go out and work.
The switched gender roles allow men to have flexible study schedules so that they can take care of the children at home.
The thing is that they're looking for professions that they could earn a lot because their husbands are not working.
Haredi women mostly work in the health and education fields, also taking an interest in math and computers.
Looking for more and more professions that you could add to the system.
The Haredi interact within society differently than other religions do. They are very conservative. For example, avoiding touching and looking at someone of the opposite sex who is not their spouse.
I went to interviews. I asked if I could sit in a room separate from men.
Yarom believes that gender separation in the workplace helps her to be more successful as a person, an employee, and a mother.
It's something that I ask for myself. You don't have to do that, but I think in all of the places I asked for it, it worked, and I said only with women.
Here in northern Israel in the Golan Heights is home to the Druze community. This used to be Syria until 1967 when the borders changed and it became Israel. Let's take a look at the role of a Druze woman. Soad Shaher is a Druze woman, a religion which incorporates elements of Islam. They don't allow marriage outside of the religion, but that's about all we know, because they keep most of it a secret. This exclusive religion forms a tight-knit community.
There is a concept here between the Druze women. It's expected that there will be a lot of respect for each other, a lot of admiration. We admire each other. That's why I like it.
When Shaher was asked how her life as a Druze woman may be different than others, she said that no two are the same.
Other women work in every place possible. There are a lot of educated women who work in schools, in big companies. The role for a woman here is the same as men, you know. Sometimes the woman makes more money than the man, so they have a big role.
After Shaher was widowed many years ago, she decided to open a restaurant.
I like cooking traditional food because I've always done it. I'm good at it, and I don't want to change.
The support that she received from her children and other community members made it possible.
We cheer for each other and support each other. That's a common thing here between the Druze. We stand together. I like that about being a Druze woman.
I spoke with one woman who's part of the Jewish majority here in Tel Aviv, As a secular Jew, she chooses which part of her religion that she wants to practice, some of them being cooking at traditional family events. The most important one is the Shabbat dinner.
Cherish the tradition.
Secular Jews make up around 30% of the population in Israel,
It's all about sharing and caring and being together.
and they choose to follow some of the Jewish practices,
Why the challah is made like this.
but not all of them.
Have a kosher kitchen. I mean, we don't mix dairy with. I don't cook meat with cream or milk, but it's a Jewish traditional kitchen.
Anat Tofel is pulled in lots of directions.
I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother. I am having my own career.
And religion's role in her family also pulls her in other directions.
We were not religious in our family. They were religious in Europe, but after the Holocaust, they decided God was not very friendly with them, so...
On the other hand, the family that she married into thinks that religion should play a role, and she feels an obligation to respect that.
But my mother-in-law tradition and the kosher Jewish kitchen is very important to her, so I honor her, and this is my way of life in her honor, and my husband, that it's also important for him.
Keeping traditions alive to pass on to her children and grandchildren.
As an Israeli mother, I had a lot of difficult times here, but I'm happy with my kids, with my family.
Living so close together in such a small country, there are similarities in the way that women in Israel live, and religion influences their home and work lives. But representation of women at the highest level is on the increase. The Israel Democracy Institute reported that in 2017, just 17% of the Israeli government was female. That's more than the US. But now, in 2019, that is up to 30%. Reporting in Israel, I'm Ashton Hiron.